you're talking about moral relativism, and I want to submit an argument that may reconcile the idea of moral relativism with what you talk about. I think that in the age of information that we have now, you can look at the demographics across the world and see where religions cluster in the Middle East and in Europe and the like, and you can see that where people congregate, common ideas seem to rise and become popular. I think that if you take that from a moral standpoint, you can argue that the morals that people talk about are kind of a wheat rising from the separating from the chaff, and that the popular morals that people have are simply a function of people talking to each other in an area and deciding that it's correct. I think that points to the possibility of moral relativism being an applicable argument.
Okay, I'm convinced that if Nazi Germany would have won World War II, would have conquered the whole world, I am still convinced that gassing Jews would be wrong. My conviction that that is true is based on my experience of certain morals being objective. The only way there can be an objective moral is if there is some moral lawgiver. You only have four options that I know of when it comes to answering the question, who defines right and wrong? You can say the individual defines right and wrong. You can say the majority, the culture defines right and wrong. Or you can say the powerful people, like King Arthur and his knights, define what's right and wrong. Or you can insist that there is a God, an eternal being, who is just and who has, throughout eternity, defined justice as a real value. Those are the only four options. Now, if one of the first three options is right, the powerful define right and wrong, the culture defines right and wrong, or the individual defines right and wrong, then obviously right and wrong are relative, depending upon which powerful person, which individual, which culture you're interacting with. The only way you can have an objective moral that is not the fancy of an individual or a culture is if there is some type of eternal God who creates and defines this value of justice. It's the only way. So now you've got to make up your mind. What does your experience of reality show you? Does your experience of reality show you that indeed morality is relative? Or do you live your life convinced that certain things are objectively wrong and other things are objectively right? I appeal to your experience.
I understand that, but I hesitate to say that the question of the existence of an objective morality has to have an answer. I don't think that you have to say that some things are always right and some things are always wrong, because the function of a society is a lot of people coming together and hammering out what they agree on. And I think that over a time and with the course of a lot of people, we have seen that there are a lot of things that we usually agree on, which is theft and murder and the like. I don't think that because we agree, it means that we will always agree, and because there is an objective truth.
Okay. Good.
Yeah?
You try and live it out. Okay. I can't live that out. I respect Gandhi. I respect a man named Mahatma Gandhi who chose to follow his conscience instead of following his culture. I respect Gandhi for the way he traveled with the untouchables And he was asked once by a journalist, why, in light of the fact that you could travel with kings and dignitaries and diplomats, do you travel with the untouchables in the train? And he said, only because there's not a fourth class. If there was a fourth class, I would travel with them. I respect that highly. I respect the Dr. Martin Luther King who says, in spite of the culture, in spite of the great state of Alabama saying that black people are inferior to white people, I'm sitting in a Birmingham jail, and I'm writing a letter to the ministers in Birmingham, telling them that there's a law above the law of the great state of Alabama, and according to this law of God, racism is a denigration of a human being. It's absolutely, objectively wrong. And if you want to imprison me for it, go right ahead. I'm not changing. And I don't care about culture. I don't care about power. I am convinced it's a real moral absolute. And I'm willing to sit in this Birmingham jail because of it. That is the type of person that I respect. I don't think I'm alone out here. I think every atheist, every agnostic, every Christian out here knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Certainly.
If you don't, then I have no argument. But if you know what I'm talking about, I'm saying that objective moral demands some type of moral lawgiver, some type of God. That's why your atheism or your agnosticism is wrong. Just follow the evidence.
Hold on a moment. I think that it is possible to agree with you when you say that Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King were respectable figures. There is a very tangible reason why they are remembered by history. But I think it is because we have listened to their arguments and said these are things that I can agree with. Yes, they can say that I believe these things are absolutely right, but it's because everyone else in society listens to his arguments and decides, okay, I will go with you on that. I will buy this argument. And
that's not why I buy their argument, because everybody else agreed with them. Medgar Evers got shot to death, sir. He didn't win. He lost. Dr. Martin Luther King didn't win. He lost. He got assassinated. But I'm convinced that Medgar Evers and Dr. Martin Luther King used their conscience in a very responsible way, got in touch with objective justice, and were willing to lay their lives down for it. I respect them for that. I don't think they were laying their lives down for a fancy, a bias, a prejudice, for some type of elitist view. I think they were in touch with reality. That's my experience of life. If you're different, then obviously I don't have that piece of evidence that God exists with you. But I don't think you're too different. I think everyone here knows exactly what I'm talking about.
If a moral relativist can arrive at the same conclusions as anybody else, but use a different train of thought, then why is that such a bad thing?
It's not. Pragmatically, I work with a lot of moral relativists. But when they ask me, Cliff, why do you believe God exists? I use their passionate adherence to justice as an objective moral value, as a piece of evidence that indeed God exists. And if my moral relativist friends are willing to think about it, they'll have to agree with me. I'll never forget speaking in a philosophy class at UC Berkeley. And after the class, the philosophy professor walked me out and said, you know, Cliff, you're absolutely right. Objective morals clearly point to some type of God. But we're almost at the point, I think, where philosophically we can give an objective moral without there being a God. We haven't gotten there yet, but I think we can.
Yeah, I think that we live
haven't done it yet.
Yes, I think that we live in a world where instant communication is possible for thousands of miles, and by that very fact, we're working towards a global consciousness that we can all agree on.
Yeah, but no philosopher, no brilliant person has shown how you can have an objective moral, a moral absolute, without there being a God.
Certainly.
Nobody's been able to do it yet.
But would you say that an absolute objective truth is only a function of everybody in the world agreeing?
No, absolutely not. That was my whole point about if the Nazi Germans had won World War II and conquered the whole world and promoted their anti-Semitism, I am convinced gassing Jews would still be absolutely wrong.